Dr. Hana stood before the Galactic Council chamber, her hands trembling slightly as she held the datapad. The massive room stretched before her, filled with representatives from 47 different species. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few existed as pure energy contained in crystal shells. All of them were watching her with varying degrees of skepticism. "The humans are not extinct," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "They chose to disappear." A ripple of dismissive sounds spread through the audience. Hana had expected this reaction. For 12,000 cycles, the Council had maintained peace through careful diplomacy and superior technology. They dealt in facts, not speculation about a primitive species that vanished 300 years ago. "Dr. Hana," spoke Counselor Vex, a towering being covered in blue crystalline formations. "We have reviewed your research. The evidence is circumstantial at best." Earth fell silent. Their broadcast stopped. "The logical conclusion is societal collapse or self-destruction." Hana pressed a button on her pad. Holographic images filled the air above the council floor. Ancient radio signals, television broadcasts, and finally, the last transmission from Earth. "Look at the pattern," she insisted. Human broadcasts didn't degrade over time. They didn't show signs of war or disaster. They simply stopped all at once across every frequency. And this final transmission, she played the audio. A calm human voice spoke in their complex language, which the translation matrix converted instantly. "We have detected something. We need time. We will return when we are ready." "This proves nothing," Vex replied. "Ready for what?" This was 3 centuries ago. If they were preparing for something, where are they? Before Hana could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Red emergency lights bathed the room. Commander Minho burst through the main doors, his gray uniform torn and scorched. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye. "The outer colonies are under attack," he announced, his voice cutting through the rising panic. "The Krillian Dominion has invaded Council space." The chamber erupted into chaos. The Krillians were known, but they had stayed in the outer rim for generations, content with their own territory. An invasion was unthinkable. Minho continued, "3 worlds have already fallen. Colonies Theta 7, Meridian, and New Valoris. They're using biological weapons we've never seen before. The weapons target specific species DNA. Our people are dying by the millions." Hana felt her blood run cold. She had been arguing about ancient mysteries while a real threat was destroying the present. "How many ships do they have?" Vex demanded. "We estimate 500 warships, possibly more," Minho replied. "My fleet engaged them at New Valoris. We lost 30 ships in the first hour. Their bioweapons make conventional warfare impossible. Our soldiers are dying before they can even fight." The council members began talking over each other, their various languages creating a wall of incomprehensible noise. Hana grabbed her datapad and quietly slipped out of the chamber. Nobody noticed her leave. She made her way to the communications center on the lower levels of the council building. Lieutenant Jiwan, a young officer with sharp eyes and quick fingers, was hunched over her console, monitoring hundreds of channels simultaneously. "Any word from the fleet?" Hana asked. Jiwan looked up startled. "Dr. Hana, you shouldn't be here during a military emergency." "I need to know what's happening," Hana said firmly. "Please." Jiwan hesitated, then gestured to her screens. "It's bad. Really bad. The Krillians have some kind of disease weapon. When our ships get close, they release it. Within minutes, entire crews are incapacitated. We can't fight them without getting close, but getting close means death." Hana studied the tactical displays. The Krillian fleet was advancing like a slow plague, methodically conquering system after system. The Council's forces were retreating on all fronts. "Have you been monitoring all frequencies?" Hana asked suddenly. "Of course," Jiwan replied. "Standard protocol." "No, I mean all frequencies, including the old ones. The directions nobody watches anymore." Jiwan frowned. "You mean toward the silent worlds?" "There's nothing out there." "Dr. Hana, just dead systems, and just check, please." Sighing, Jiwan adjusted her console, expanding the range to include frequencies that hadn't been monitored in decades. The screen filled with static and empty channels. She was about to turn it off when a single green light began blinking. "That's impossible," Jiwan whispered. "That signal is coming from the Sol system." "From Earth." Hana leaned forward, her heart racing. "Can you decode it?" Jiwan's fingers flew across her console. The static resolved into patterns, then words. The translation matrix struggled with the language, then locked on. A human voice speaking in clear, measured tones. "We heard you. "We're coming," the message repeated on a loop, 6 words that changed everything. Ji-won immediately opened a channel to Commander Minho. "Sir, you need to hear this." Within minutes, the command center was filled with senior officers. They listened to the message again and again. Some thought it was a hoax. Others thought it was a Krillian trick. But Hana knew better. "They've been listening," she said quietly. "All this time they've been out there, watching and listening." Commander Minho stared at the signal coordinates. "Even if this is real, what can one species do? We're losing this war. We need help now, not promises from a species that disappeared 300 years ago." "Then we have nothing to lose by hoping," Hana replied. Over the next 2 weeks, the situation deteriorated rapidly. 4 more worlds fell to the Krillian advance. The Council fleet was in full retreat, trying desperately to evacuate civilians before the enemy arrived. Minho had reorganized the surviving ships into a defensive line around the core worlds, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. Hana spent her days in the communications center with Ji-won, monitoring the signal from Earth. It had stopped after that first message. The silence was somehow worse than hearing nothing at all. "Maybe they changed their minds," Ji-won said one evening, her voice hollow with exhaustion. "Maybe they realized they couldn't help." "Or maybe they're already on their way," Hana replied, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. On the 15th day after the first message, Ji-won was running routine scans when every sensor in the communications center went haywire. Alarms screamed. Energy readings spiked off the charts. "Something just appeared at the edge of the system," Ji-won shouted over the noise. "Multiple contacts. Hundreds of them." Minho's voice crackled over the emergency channel. "All ships, we have unknown vessels entering Council space. They appeared out of nowhere. Moving to intercept." Hana and Ji-won pulled up the visual feeds from the defensive fleet. On the screens, ships unlike anything in Council records hung in the darkness of space. They were angular and aggressive, built for war rather than exploration. Their hulls were dark, almost black, marked with white symbols that the translation matrix couldn't interpret. Then a new transmission filled every channel, in every language spoken by Council species. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but carried an undercurrent of absolute certainty. "This is Admiral Junho of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. We received your distress signals. We're here to help. Tell us where you need us." In the communications center, Hana felt tears streaming down her face. She had been right. Humanity had never died. They had been preparing, and now, as the Council faced its darkest hour, the legends had returned. The war was about to change in ways nobody could predict. Commander Minho watched the human fleet through the main view screen of his flagship. The ships hung in formation, dark and imposing against the stars. His tactical officer had counted 300 vessels, each one broadcasting power signatures that shouldn't be possible with known technology. "Sir, the lead human ship is hailing us," his communications officer reported. "Put them through," Minho ordered, straightening his uniform. The view screen shifted to show a human male, appearing to be in his middle years by their standards. He wore a dark blue uniform with minimal decoration. His eyes were calm but sharp, taking in everything with a glance. "I am Admiral Junho," the human said. "Permission to approach your fleet, Commander?" "Permission granted," Minho replied carefully. "But I must ask, where did you come from?" "Your ship simply appeared. We detected no jump signatures, no warp distortions." Junho smiled slightly. "We've developed new methods of travel. I'll be happy to explain, but first, tell me about your enemy. What are you facing?" Over the next hour, Minho explained the Krillian invasion, their biological weapons, and the Council's inability to mount an effective defense. Junho listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a data pad. "Bioweapons," Junho said finally. "Nasty but not surprising. They're effective because your species haven't experienced the kind of disease evolution Earth has. We've been fighting microscopic enemies for our entire existence." "You think you're immune?" Minho asked skeptically. "We'll find out soon enough," Junho replied. "But Earth's biodiversity created an evolutionary arms race. Our immune systems are flexible because they had to be. That might give us an advantage." "Might isn't good enough," Minho said. "We're losing this war." "Then let us help you win it," Junho said simply. The Council was divided on accepting human assistance. Half the members argued they had no choice. The other half feared that humanity might be as dangerous as the Krillians. Dr. Hana found herself appointed as official liaison to the human fleet, a position that filled her with both excitement and terror. She took a small shuttle to the human flagship, a massive vessel called the Defiant. As she approached, she marveled at its construction. The ship was built like a fortress, layers of armor and weapon systems covering every surface. This was not a ship designed for exploration. This was a ship designed to survive. The docking bay was clean and functional, without any of the decorative elements common in council ships. Human crew members moved with purpose, their movements efficient and coordinated. They wore practical uniforms in dark colors, and many carried weapons openly. A woman approached as Hana disembarked. She was shorter than Hana but carried herself with absolute confidence. Her uniform marked her as a captain. "Dr. Hana, I'm Captain Suman. Welcome aboard the Defiant. Admiral Junho is waiting for you." Hana followed Suman through corridors that felt narrower than those on council ships. Everything about human design seemed focused on functionality over comfort. They passed rooms filled with equipment she didn't recognize, and crew members who glanced at her with open curiosity. Admiral Junho's office was surprisingly simple. A desk, a few chairs, and walls covered with star charts. Junho stood when she entered, gesturing to a seat. "Dr. Hana," he said warmly, "I understand you've been studying humanity for years. I hope we live up to the legends." "The legends said you were extinct," Hana replied, settling into the chair. Junho laughed. "Then we're already exceeding expectations. But you deserve the truth about where we've been." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. 300 years ago, we detected signals from beyond our system. Radio waves, energy signatures, signs of advanced civilizations. We were excited at first. We weren't alone in the universe. The display shifted to show expanding territorial maps. Then we noticed patterns. Civilizations appeared, flourished, and then vanished, always when a specific signature appeared in their region of space. "The Krillian signature. You knew about them?" Hana asked, shocked. "We identified them as a threat before we'd even developed faster-than-light travel," Junho confirmed. "Our scientists calculated that at their rate of expansion, they would reach Earth within 500 years. We had a choice: announce ourselves and hope for help, or prepare in silence." "You chose silence," Hana said. "We chose survival," Junho corrected. "Earth had just recovered from our own global conflicts. We knew what we were capable of when threatened. So we made a plan. We would go silent, develop technology in secret, and prepare for the day we would be needed." The holographic display showed underground cities, space stations, and massive shipyards hidden in asteroid belts. "We moved most of our population off Earth. We built habitats throughout the solar system. We studied every broadcast we could intercept from council species. We learned your languages, your biology, your warfare. You've been watching us for 3 centuries, Hana said, the implications settling over her like a weight. "Studying," Junho said. "Learning. We knew we couldn't match the Krillians alone, but we could prepare to fight beside others when the time came." A younger human entered the office. His uniform marked him as an engineer. "Admiral, the modifications to the destroyer squadron are complete. Captain Suman reports ready for combat trials." "Excellent. Thank you, Daehyun," Junho said. The engineer nodded to Hana and left. "Combat trials?" Hana asked. "We detected a small Krillian raiding party near the 4th moon," Junho explained. "Captain Suman has volunteered to engage them. Would you like to observe?" Hana found herself in the Defiant's Combat Control Center, surrounded by human officers monitoring dozens of screens. Captain Suman's destroyer, the Indomitable, appeared on the main display along with 5 support ships. They were moving toward a cluster of Krillian vessels near a small moon. "Krillians are releasing their bioweapon," a tactical officer reported, cloud dispersing toward Captain Suman's ships. Hana tensed, remembering how council ships had fallen to this weapon. The human officers seemed calm, almost unconcerned. The bioweapon cloud engulfed the Indomitable. Hana waited for the reports of crew casualties that always came. Instead, Captain Suman's voice came through clearly. "Bioweapon confirmed ineffective. All crew members showing normal vital signs. Proceeding with engagement." The human ships accelerated directly toward the Krillian vessels. This was wrong. Council doctrine called for maintaining distance, using long-range weapons to avoid the bioweapons, but the humans were charging straight in. "Captain Suman is deviating from standard tactics," Hana said nervously. We don't use standard tactics, Admiral Junho replied from beside her. Watch. The Indomitable opened fire at close range, its weapons ripping through Krillian shields with unexpected power. The human ship moved erratically, never maintaining a predictable course. Krillian return fire mostly missed, unable to track the aggressive maneuvering. 2 Krillian ships exploded. The remaining 3 attempted to retreat, but Suman's support ships had flanked them during the confusion. Within minutes, the entire Krillian raiding party was destroyed. Engagement complete, Suman reported. 0 casualties. Returning to fleet. The control center erupted in quiet approval. Hana sat in stunned silence. She had watched council ships fight the Krillians for weeks. She had seen battle after battle end in retreat or defeat. The humans had just won in minutes, and they seemed to consider it routine. How? She asked Junho. Your species developed in relatively peaceful environments, Junho explained. Most council species achieved spaceflight through cooperation and gradual progress. Humanity evolved differently. We fought each other for thousands of years. We understand violence in ways peaceful species don't. That should make you dangerous, Hana said carefully. It does, Junho agreed without hesitation. That's exactly why we isolated ourselves. We needed to prove we could control our nature before we joined the galaxy. But now the galaxy needs what we are. The Krillians understand violence too. To stop them, you need someone who speaks their language. Over the next few days, the human fleet conducted more engagements with Krillian forces. Each battle was a victory. The Krillians' bioweapons were completely ineffective against humans, and human tactics overwhelmed their conventional defenses. Commander Minho watched from his flagship, analyzing every move. The humans fought with a combination of aggression and precision he'd never seen. They took calculated risks that would terrify council commanders, but those risks paid off consistently. Lieutenant Jiwan intercepted a Krillian military transmission and brought it to Minho immediately. The translation matrix struggled with their language but eventually produced results. They're calling humans the nightmare species, Jiwan said, her voice filled with disbelief. They're requesting reinforcements and asking their high command for new strategies. They don't know how to fight something they can't infect. Minho read the translation again. The Krillians, who had conquered 3 council worlds in weeks, were afraid. For the first time since the invasion began, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. The humans had entered the conflict, and the galaxy would never be the same. The joint war room was crowded with officers from both human and council forces. Commander Minho stood beside Admiral Junho, studying the holographic battle map that floated above the central table. Red markers showed Krillian-controlled systems. Blue markers showed the Allied positions. There was far too much red. We need to retake the occupied worlds, Junho said, gesturing at 3 systems deep in Krillian territory. But a direct assault would cost too many lives. We need to be smarter. The council military doesn't employ deception tactics, Minho said carefully. Our warfare has always been straightforward. Junho looked at him with something between sympathy and confusion. That's probably why you were losing. War isn't about honor. It's about winning while minimizing your casualties. Dr. Hana, sitting near the back of the room, watched the interaction with fascination. The cultural gap between humans and council species was becoming more apparent every day. What humans called tactical brilliance, many council members called ruthlessness. Captain Suman stepped forward, pointing to the first occupied world. We sent reconnaissance drones. The Krillians have established garrison fleets here, and here, standard defensive positions. They're expecting a frontal assault. So we don't give them one, Junho said. We hit them from 3 directions simultaneously. Split their forces, create chaos. While they're distracted, we land ground troops to evacuate civilians. Ground troops? Minho questioned. We've never successfully landed on a Krillian-held world. Their bioweapons make the surface deadly. Not to humans, Junho replied. He pressed a button and the hologram shifted to show armored figures. I'd like you to meet Corporal Hyejin. She leads our best Marine unit. A young woman stepped into the room. She was smaller than most humans present, but she moved with a predator's grace. Her armor was dark gray, covered in scratches and burn marks from previous battles. Corporal, Junho said, explain your team's capabilities. Hyejin's voice was calm and professional. My unit specializes in hostile environment operations. We've trained for biological contamination, chemical weapons, and radiation. The Krillian bioweapons won't stop us. We can secure landing zones and protect evacuation sites. Minho studied the Marine carefully. You're confident you can operate in an environment that has killed millions of our people? Yes, sir, Yejin replied without hesitation. We've been preparing for this our entire lives. The offensive began 3 days later. The combined fleet split into 3 task forces, each targeting a different approach vector to the first occupied world. The Krillian defenders detected them immediately and moved to intercept. Then the humans introduced Council forces to psychological warfare. Human ships broadcast messages on all Krillian frequencies, some in their language, others just noise designed to disrupt communications. False sensor readings created phantom fleets that forced the Krillians to divide their attention. This is chaos, Minho muttered, watching the tactical display from his flagship. This is human warfare, Dr. Hana replied beside him. She'd been allowed on the bridge to observe and advise. They're making the enemy confused and afraid. The Krillian fleet scattered, trying to respond to multiple threats simultaneously. In that moment of disorder, Captain Suman's destroyer squadron punched through their defensive line and headed directly for the planet. Corporal Hyegen and her Marines launched from orbit in small, fast dropships. Krillian anti-air defenses opened fire, but the human pilots flew with aggressive precision, dodging and weaving through the incoming fire. 3 dropships were hit and destroyed, but the rest made it through. Hyegin's boots hit the ground in the middle of what had been a council city. The buildings were damaged and bodies lay in the streets where the bioweapon had killed them. She could see the pale green mist of the Krillian weapon still hanging in the air. Bioweapon confirmed present, she reported calmly. No effect on team. Proceeding with mission. Her unit of 20 Marines spread out, securing the landing zone. They moved efficiently, checking every corner and doorway. Within minutes, they had established a defensive perimeter. The evacuation ships began landing. Council medical teams in protective suits rushed out, searching for survivors. Many had fled underground when the Krillians attacked. Now, with human Marines protecting them, they could be rescued. A Krillian ground patrol appeared, moving between the ruined buildings. They were tall creatures, insect-like with dark exoskeletons and multiple limbs. They carried weapons that sprayed their bioweapon along with conventional ammunition. Contact, Hyegen said quietly into her radio. Engaging. The firefight was brief and brutal. The Krillians were surprised to face enemies immune to their primary weapon. Hyegin's squad moved like they'd been born for this, covering each other and advancing with mechanical precision. The Krillian patrol was eliminated in under 2 minutes. More enemy forces would be coming. The Marines held their position while evacuation ships loaded refugees. Hours passed. The Krillians attacked in waves, and each wave was repelled. By the time the last evacuation ship lifted off, Hyegin's armor was scorched and dented, and 3 of her Marines were wounded. But they'd saved over 10,000 Council civilians. Back on the flagship, Minho watched the evacuation numbers with something close to awe. Impossible, he whispered. We'd written off everyone on that world. Nothing's impossible, Dr. Hana said quietly. Just very, very difficult. While the military campaign continued, a human xenobiologist named Dr. Jisoo worked with Council scientists on a different kind of warfare. She was young and energetic, constantly moving between lab stations with an excitement that made the more reserved Council scientists uncomfortable. The key is human antibodies, she explained to a room full of alien researchers. Earth's disease history means we've developed incredibly adaptive immune responses. We can weaponize that. She displayed holographic models of human immune cells attacking Krillian bioweapons. If we can synthesize these antibodies on a large scale, we can create a vaccine for Council species. It won't make you as resistant as humans, but it'll give you a fighting chance. The breakthrough came after 2 weeks of constant work. The first Council volunteers received the treatment and were exposed to controlled samples of the Krillian bioweapon. The results were promising. Not perfect, but dramatically better than before. Within a month, the vaccine was being mass-produced and distributed to Council military forces. It didn't eliminate the threat, but it changed the calculation. Council ships could now engage Krillians at closer range without guaranteeing death. Meanwhile, a quiet human officer named Kyungmin was making different kinds of discoveries. He worked in intelligence, studying captured Krillian communications and battle patterns. He rarely spoke, but when he did, people listened. They're going to redirect their main fleet, he announced during a strategy meeting. They see humanity as an existential threat now. Within 2 weeks, every available Krillian warship will move to confront us. How can you know that? a council admiral demanded. Kyungmin displayed pages of intercepted communications and battle movement patterns. Because it's what I would do in their position. They can't win if they can't neutralize the human advantage. They'll commit everything to destroying us. Admiral Junho studied the data. If they're bringing their entire fleet, we need to be ready. Where will they attack? The Cerberus Nebula, Kyungmin replied immediately. It's the logical staging area for a push toward human space. Dense stellar matter limits sensor range. They'll think it gives them an advantage. Then we'll be waiting for them, Junho said. The Battle of Cerberus Nebula would be remembered as the turning point of the war. The combined human and council fleets positioned themselves within the nebula's dense gas clouds, using the same sensor limitations the Krillians had counted on. The Krillian armada arrived exactly when Kyungmin predicted. Over 800 warships, the largest force they'd ever assembled. They moved into the nebula in standard formation, confident in their numerical superiority. Then the ambush was sprung. Human ships emerged from the gas clouds at point-blank range, firing before the Krillians could react. Council ships, now protected by the vaccine, moved in to support. The nebula erupted into a chaotic battle, ships exploding and colliding in the limited visibility. Captain Suman's Indomitable took severe damage early in the fight. A Krillian heavy cruiser scored direct hits on her port side, venting atmosphere and killing crew members. But Suman refused to retreat, instead ordering her ship to ram the damaged Krillian vessel. Both ships tumbled away from the main battle, locked together and burning. Lieutenant Jiwon coordinated communications across the entire Allied fleet, her voice calm despite the chaos. She rerouted sensor data, managed fleet movements, and kept dozens of ships from colliding in the dense nebula. Her console sparked and overloaded twice, but she kept working through emergency backups. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it finally ended, debris from hundreds of destroyed ships drifted through the nebula. Both sides had suffered terrible losses, but the Krillian advance had been stopped. Corporal Heejin's Marines rescued Captain Suman and her surviving crew from the wrecked Indomitable. Suman had a broken arm and severe burns but was alive. As medics carried her to safety, she managed a weak smile. Did we win? We survived, Heejin replied. The council chambers were tense. Representatives from 47 species argued over the same question they'd been debating for 3 days. What to do about humanity. Commander Minho sat in the gallery, watching the proceedings with growing frustration. The Krillians were requesting peace talks, and instead of discussing terms, the council was arguing about whether humans had too much influence. They've taken command of our military, Councillor Vex declared, his crystalline form glowing with agitation. We asked for help, and now they're making all strategic decisions. What happens when the war ends? Will they give back that power? They're winning the war we were losing, another councillor countered. Perhaps we should be grateful instead of suspicious. Dr. Hana stood and requested permission to speak. The chamber quieted. Humanity saved us, she said simply. They appeared when we needed them most. Yes, they fight differently than we do. Yes, they make decisions that make us uncomfortable. But they're bleeding and dying alongside our people. They've earned our trust. Or they've taken advantage of our desperation. Vex replied coldly. Dr. Hana, you've admired humans for years. Your judgment may be clouded by your own fascination with them. Before Hana could respond, the chamber doors opened. A woman entered, flanked by 2 guards in human military uniforms. She was older than most humans Minho had met, with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to evaluate everything instantly. I am Chancellor Yuna, she announced, her voice carrying easily through the large space. I lead the human government. I've come to address your concerns directly. The council chamber erupted in whispers. The human leader herself had arrived, unannounced and unexpected. Yuna walked to the center of the floor without waiting for permission. I understand you're debating whether to trust us. That's wise. You should be cautious. We're strangers who appeared during your crisis, but let me be clear about our intentions. She activated a holographic display showing human territory. This is our space. 57 star systems, over 200 habitats and stations, 12 billion people. We built all of this in secret over 3 centuries. We did it because we knew the Krillians would eventually come for us too. The display shifted to show projected invasion routes. If the Krillians conquer council space, they gain resources and momentum. Within 20 years, they would reach Earth. We're not helping you out of kindness. We're helping you because your survival is connected to ours. That doesn't explain why you demand strategic command, Vex said. Because we know how to win this kind of war, and you don't, Una replied bluntly. Your military traditions emphasize honor and restraint. Those are beautiful values in peacetime. In war against an enemy like the Krillians, they're weaknesses that get people killed. She gestured at the holographic battle displays. Every engagement under human command has been a victory. Every evacuation we've led has saved lives you'd written off as lost. We're not demanding power for its own sake. We're using it to keep you alive. And after the war? Vex pressed. Will you simply leave? Una paused, and for the first time she looked uncomfortable. That depends on you. We can return to our isolation if you prefer, or we can build something together. A true alliance where human and council species cooperate as equals. Equals? Vex laughed bitterly. You've seen what we are. We can't fight like you can. We can't make the hard decisions you make without hesitation. How can we be equals? Because strength isn't just about violence, Una said quietly. You've built a society that maintained peace for 12,000 cycles. You've created art and science and philosophy we're only beginning to understand. You have strengths we lack. We have strengths you lack. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone. The council agreed to vote on Una's proposal for formal alliance. But before the vote could happen, a new crisis emerged. Deep in Krillian territory, intelligence reported that the enemy was constructing massive cloning facilities. They were breeding new soldiers at an accelerated rate, preparing to replace their losses. If those facilities became operational, the war could drag on for decades. Admiral Junho called an emergency meeting. Commander Minho arrived to find a grim-faced group of officers gathered around a tactical display. The facilities are here, here, and here, Junho said, pointing to 3 heavily defended systems. Destroying them would cripple Krillian military production. But they're protected by defensive stations and minefields. Any assault would be suicide. So we find another way, Captain Suman said. Her arm was still in a cast from the Cerberus battle, but she'd refused to stay in medical. There is no other way, Junho replied. We need volunteers for a one-way mission. Small ships, fast insertion. Destroy the facilities from within. Chances of survival are less than 30%. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what he was asking. I volunteer, said a deep voice from the doorway. Commander Tajin entered. He was older than most human soldiers, with scars visible on his neck and hands. He moved with the careful precision of someone who'd been wounded too many times but kept fighting anyway. Commander Tajin leads our Special Operations Forces. Yunyo explained to the council officers present. If anyone can do this, it's his people. I'll need a mixed team, Tajin said. Humans for infiltration, council members who know Krillian technology. This needs to be a joint mission. Minho felt something shift inside him. He'd been fighting alongside humans for months, but he'd been observing from a distance, commanding from his flagship. Now he understood that wasn't enough. If he wanted to truly understand these strange, violent, honorable creatures, he needed to fight beside them. I volunteer, Minho said. Everyone turned to look at him. Yunyo frowned. Commander, you're too valuable to risk on... I'm volunteering, Minho repeated firmly. If we're building an alliance, council members need to show we're willing to take the same risks humans take. Tajin studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Welcome to the team. The mission team assembled over the next 3 days. 20 humans and 10 council members from various species. Each one a volunteer who understood they probably wouldn't return. They trained together, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses. Corporal Hyagin taught the council members human combat techniques. Move fast, stay low, don't hesitate. Hesitation gets you killed. Dr. Jisoo provided detailed briefings on Krillian biology and technology. Their facilities are organic, grown rather than built. That means they have vulnerabilities normal structures don't have. Kyungmin planned their insertion routes, finding gaps in Krillian defenses that shouldn't exist. They're arrogant. They don't believe anyone would be crazy enough to attack these facilities directly. We'll use that. The night before the mission, Minho couldn't sleep. He found Dr. Hana in the observation deck staring out at the stars. Having second thoughts? She asked without turning. Wondering if I'll see those stars again, he admitted. The humans do this constantly, Hana said. Send people on missions they might not survive. How do they accept it? I asked Tajin that question, Minho replied. He said something strange. He said death isn't failure. Giving up is failure. As long as you keep fighting until the end, you've succeeded. That's a hard philosophy to live by, Hana said. It's a hard universe to live in, Minho replied. The mission launched at dawn. 3 small ships, heavily shielded and running silent, slipped into Krillian territory. They traveled for 2 days, avoiding patrols and sensor sweeps until they reached the first facility. The structure was massive, a living thing of flesh and chitin that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Thousands of Krillian soldiers were being grown inside, accelerated to maturity in weeks instead of years. Taejin's team landed and moved into the facility through maintenance tunnels. The interior was hot and humid, more like a living organism than a building. Minho followed Taejin, his weapon ready, his heart pounding. They encountered guards quickly. The firefight was brutal and close quarters. Minho saw a human soldier take a hit meant for a council team member and keep fighting despite the wound. He saw a council engineer sacrifice himself to hold a door open so others could escape a collapsing tunnel. Species and origin didn't matter anymore. They were just soldiers fighting for each other. They reached the central growing chambers and planted their explosives. As they retreated, alarms finally sounded. Krillian forces converged from all directions. The team fought their way back to the ships. 4 humans and 3 council members died in the fighting. Minho took a grazing shot that left his shoulder burning with pain, but Hyejin covered him and pulled him to safety. The ships launched as the facility exploded behind them. 1 ship was destroyed during escape, taking its crew with it. The other 2 made it out, heavily damaged but functional. They repeated the process at the 2nd and 3rd facilities. Each time they lost people. Each time the survivors kept fighting. When they finally returned to Allied space, only 12 of the original 30 team members were still alive. Commander Taejin was among the dead, killed holding a position so others could retreat. Minho stood in the debriefing room, exhausted and wounded, and gave his report. The facilities were destroyed. Krillian military production was crippled. The mission was a success. But he couldn't stop thinking about Taejin's last words spoken calmly over the radio as he held that position alone. The Allied fleet assembled at the edge of Krillian space. Over 400 ships from dozens of species, representing the largest military force in galactic history. Human vessels formed the vanguard, their dark hulls marked with battle damage from months of warfare. Council ships filled the supporting positions, their crews now trained in human tactics and protected by Dr. Jisu's vaccine. Admiral Junho stood on the bridge of the Defiant, studying the holographic display of their target. The Krillian homeworld was heavily defended, surrounded by orbital stations and minefields. Getting through would cost lives, many lives. Commander Minho joined him, his shoulder still bandaged from the facility raids. The fleet is ready, Admiral. All ships report prepared for combat. But not all of them will come back, Junho said quietly. Some of those crews are going to die today because of orders I give. That's the weight of command, Minho replied. You taught me that, Junho smiled slightly. I'm glad something from human warfare philosophy stuck. Captain Suman approached, her cast finally removed and arm functional again. Sir, I have a request. Let the Indomitable lead the first wave. We've been rebuilt and upgraded. Let us prove it. Denied, Junho said firmly. You've already sacrificed enough, Captain. I need you alive to help rebuild after this is over. Sir, Suman began to protest. That's an order, Junho said, but his tone was gentle. You've earned the right to survive this war, Suman. Let someone else take the risks this time. In the medical bay, Dr. Jisu was running final checks on the vaccine supplies. Council medical teams had been trained in its administration, ready to treat casualties during the battle. A young council doctor approached her nervously. Dr. Jisu, I wanted to thank you. My species was dying to the Krillian bioweapons. Your work saved us. Jisu looked up from her equipment surprised. I'm just doing my job. Besides, this is what science should be for. Saving lives, not taking them. Corporal Hyejin prepared her Marines for what would likely be the final ground operation. If the fleet broke through, they would need to secure key positions on the Krillian homeworld itself. Listen up, she told her assembled squad. This isn't a raid. This is the end. We go in, we complete the mission, and we all come home. Anyone who dies today is going to make me very angry, and you don't want that. Her squad laughed nervously. They'd followed Hyejin through hell and back. If anyone could get them through this, it was her. Lieutenant Jiwon sat at her communication station, coordinating final system checks across the massive fleet. She'd been at this post for months now, managing the complex dance of keeping hundreds of ships synchronized. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease. All ships confirming ready status, she reported. Fleet coordination network at full capacity. Good work, Lieutenant, Admiral Junho replied. When this is over, you're getting a long vacation. With respect, sir, I'll believe that when I see it, Jiwon replied with a slight smile. Dr. Hana stood in the observation deck with Envoy Nari, watching the fleet prepare. Since learning the truth about humanity's violent history, Hana had struggled with conflicting feelings. Her life's work had been studying humans as noble legends. Reality was more complicated. You're upset, Nari observed. I'm processing, Hana replied. I admired you for so long. Learning that you're not perfect is difficult. We never claimed to be perfect, Nari said gently. We're just trying to be better than we were. Isn't that what matters? Not where we started, but the direction we're moving. Before Hana could respond, alarms sounded throughout the fleet. The assault was beginning. The first wave of ships, led by a human destroyer squadron, jumped into Krillian space. Orbital defenses opened fire immediately. Ships exploded, their crews dying in bursts of light and debris. But the attack had begun, and there was no turning back. The second and third waves followed, overwhelming the defensive stations with sheer numbers. Council ships, now trained in aggressive human tactics, pushed forward despite taking damage. The vaccine kept crews alive through bioweapon attacks that would have killed them months ago. Captain Suman, watching from the Indomitable in the reserve position, clenched her fists. Every instinct screamed to join the battle. But Junho's order held her back. The orbital defenses began to crack. Human demolition teams boarded defensive stations, fighting through corridors to disable weapon systems from within. Corporal Hyjin led one such team, her Marines clearing rooms with brutal efficiency. They reached the central command node of a major station. A group of Krillian soldiers defended it desperately. The firefight was intense, fought at ranges so close that species didn't matter, only survival. Hyjin's squad prevailed, but at cost. 2 Marines died securing the room. Hyjin personally planted the charges that would destroy the station, her hands steady despite the pain of her own wounds. As they evacuated, Hyjin carried one of her wounded soldiers. A council officer helped her, supporting the injured Marine's other side. They made it to the extraction ship just as the station exploded behind them. In space, the Allied fleet pushed through the orbital defenses and began descending toward the planet. This was the moment of truth. The Krillian homeworld itself lay before them, its cities visible on the surface below. Admiral Junho broadcast on all channels, in every language. We are here to end this war, not to destroy you. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Continue fighting and we will do what we must. There was silence. Then the surface defense batteries opened fire. The fleet had no choice. They returned fire, targeting military installations while trying to avoid civilian areas. It was the kind of precision warfare that only the combined skill of human aggression and council restraint could achieve. Landing craft descended through the fire. Corporal Hyjin's Marines hit the ground alongside council soldiers, securing a landing zone near the Krillian command center. The enemy fought fiercely, defending their homeworld with desperate courage. The ground battle raged for hours. Buildings fell. Streets became battlefields. Both sides took heavy casualties. But slowly, inevitably, the Allied forces advanced. Hyjin's squad breached the command center. Inside, they found the Krillian High Command, old creatures tired and desperate. The Marines surrounded them, weapons ready. One Krillian leader, its translator rendering its words in council standard language, spoke. Why? Why show mercy now after everything? Dr. Hana had insisted on joining the landing force against all military advice. She pushed through the Marines to face the Krillian leaders. Because someone has to break the cycle, she said. You attacked us. We fought back. If we destroy you completely, who's next? When does the violence end? We had no choice, the Krillian leader said bitterly. We fled from something worse, something that still hunts us from beyond charted space. We needed resources, space, time to prepare. The revelation shocked everyone present. The Krillians weren't conquerors by nature. They were refugees, running from an even greater threat. Admiral Junho, monitoring from orbit, made a decision that would define humanity's future. Stand down. All forces cease fire. We need to talk to them. Over the next days, the truth emerged. The Krillians had been driven from their original territory by something they called the Devourers, entities from uncharted space that consumed entire civilizations. The biological weapons, the aggressive expansion. It had all been desperate preparation for an enemy they knew would eventually follow them. Chancellor Yuna arrived on the Krillian homeworld personally. She met with the Krillian leaders in their damaged command center. "You could have asked for help," she said. "The council would have listened." "We tried," the Krillian leader replied. 300 years ago, we sent peaceful envoys. The council dismissed us as primitive. We were denied entry, left to face the Devourers alone, so we became what we had to become to survive." Yuna looked at Dr. Hana, then at Commander Minho. "So we're all running from something. You from the Devourers, humanity from our own violent nature, maybe the council from the complexity of a galaxy that isn't as peaceful as you want it to be." "What are you proposing?" Minho asked. "A new alliance," Yuna said. "Not just humans in the council. All of us, including the Krillians. We share intelligence about the Devourers. We prepare together. And when they come, because they will come, we face them as one." The proposal was controversial. Many council members wanted justice for the millions killed in the Krillian invasion. Many humans argued that showing mercy was weakness. But others, like Dr. Hana and Commander Minho, understood that the galaxy had changed. The vote in the reformed Galactic Assembly was close, but it passed. The Krillians would be allowed to join as probationary members, subject to oversight and restrictions, but members nonetheless. Commander Minho was promoted to Admiral and assigned as permanent liaison between the Council and humanity. His first official act was to propose joint military academies where all species could learn from each other. Dr. Hana became Ambassador of Interspecies Understanding, a newly created position focused on building cultural bridges between species. Her first project was establishing exchange programs so young people from different worlds could learn about each other. Captain Suman received command of the new Joint Defense Fleet, a mixed force designed to protect all Alliance members equally. The Indomitable became her flagship, rebuilt and upgraded.